missing class just once, and people wouldn't even give me their notes from the day before. That's how competitive this was. And that level of intensity can really start to affect you. I just read a study recently that the chances of you retaining information are 50% greater if you study half the time and get a good night's rest as opposed to staying up all night and studying. Meaning that if your mind isn't rested, no matter what you put into your head, this girl's falling asleep right here, it's perfect. So no matter what you're putting into your head, we're filling up subconscious while she's sleeping right now. So it is, no matter what you do, you must get rest. That's when your body needs rest. So it's better for you to get to bed. I used to, in graduate school, I used to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, wake up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and study for 2 or 3 hours, knowing that I would retain more information when my mind was rested, as opposed to staying up till 2 in the morning studying, and then sleeping the same amount of time until 7 or 8 in the morning right before my exam. So that's important. One of the things I always teach clients is, and the cognitive behavioral therapy, emotional freedom techniques, these are like advanced techniques that someone like Jamie can really help you with. I don't spend an hour with each person, but the things that we delve into in our office are the number one priority in your life should always be your health. Because no matter what you want to do, whether you want to be a mother, whether you want to be a spouse, whether you want to be in design, whether you want to be a chiropractor, a family therapist, whatever you want to do, you cannot do any of those things unless the number one priority in your life is your health. Because once your health is gone, what do you have? Nothing. You have nothing once your health is gone. And in fact, this statistic I'm going to tell you to scare you a little bit and kind of push health up the ladder a little, is the number one cause of personal bankruptcy in this country is what? It's a healthcare crisis after the age of 65. Now in this country, 65 is the golden line where people are going to do what? Or they want to retire, right? So just visualize this for a second. You work your whole life. You save up as much money as you possibly can working your whole life so that you can retire at 65 and enjoy, for me, the next 45 lives. I plan on living to be 110. So the next 45 years of your life. And you've saved up all this money to live that life, and all of a sudden, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years into retirement, you have a healthcare crisis that takes every penny you have saved your whole entire life to enjoy your retirement. Now, out of those people, 90% of those people were insured, but their insurance only covered a portion of what their medical bills were. So if you don't decide today, and right now in your life, that health needs to be your number one priority, then it's all for naught, because everything you're striving for your entire life, without your health, there's no way that you can possibly attain those things and attain those goals that you want in your life. So I recommend writing down the priorities of things that are most important to you in your life, and maybe getting 3 or 4 people as an accountability group. I have a group of doctors that we meet, and we meet on the phone twice a month. We meet in person once a month, where we hold each other accountable for our goals, and you create a support group. And we talk about the stresses and anxiety and the things that you're concerned about, and we address them right there in the moment so that we're looking at the cause and not just covering up the symptom.
Absolutely, it's a good question. So the question was, how is anxiety related back to depression? And if it does, absolutely, and it does. So a lot of times, one of the 2 major things I see in private practice is anxiety and depression. Those are the 2 main reasons why people come to counseling, is because they're feeling depressed or they're anxious. So the thing is, when you're depressed, you're going to have negative thoughts, correct? So that's what we were saying. So now hopefully you've been able to know, okay, what depression is. We're going to have negative thoughts. That's one of the big things. So with anxiety, it's related because at times when we're having negative thoughts, we're going to feel anxious about something. So they're hand in hand. So if I'm having negative thoughts about the way my shoes look right now, right? If I'm like, oh, she's looking at my shoes and she doesn't like them, and she's probably saying, where did she get them? And this is a Fashion Institute, right? Like looking at my outfit, and oh my God, what is she wearing? And so obviously I'm going to have negative thoughts, which is going to produce some anxiety. And so as the anxiety comes, where I start to think, oh, I should have worn another outfit. Why not asking me if she like my outfit or not? Then I'm going to start to maybe have a panic attack, right? And so there's definitely there's symptoms, and there's a range on anxiety and where you're at. So a little of anxiety actually is healthy, because we wouldn't get out of bed If there was no anxiety or stress in your life, I'd be on the couch right now eating Bahamas, right? You would too, right?
Sure. Why not? I'll be watching football.
Exactly, right? So that there's some stress and some anxiety is good because we're able to function at that level, but too much, obviously, can enable us and affect our lives. So that's a really good question. I really appreciate that. Anyone else? Any questions? Okay.
How do you not fix the thoughts or how do you not fix the thoughts? Are you noticing?
Absolutely, I know exactly what you're saying. So
The thoughts that you have.
how do you change your thought process? Correct, yeah. So how do you change, if you're having negative thoughts, what do you do? One of the things is that there's usually themes. I do a lot of couples counseling too, and so when I see that, it's what's the theme? What keeps coming up? What's the negative thought? You know, if I keep having negative thoughts about my outfit, then maybe I'm insecure about how I look. And if I'm having, if I'm still having negative thoughts about, in a relationship, or I'm with my boyfriend and I keep having negative thoughts around his parents, really trying to figure out, well, maybe I've got insecurities right now about how I'm feeling and why. And maybe it's because I'm overwhelmed. I've got school, I've got social pressures, I'm isolated. Right now I'm super stressed out. It's the end of, there's finals, there's projects. And so maybe at times you're gonna be more prone to stress. And that's really important. A lot of times people deal with it differently. People might try, when you feel out of control in your life, you might try to control other areas. You might try to clean your house more, whatever it may be. It's just this out of control feeling. Does that make sense? Anyone else? Yeah.
Just to follow up, Dr. Mark, how would you approach that from your perspective?
Yes, it's a good question.
Okay. What I like to do, I think the key and the precursor to anxiety, the precursor to depression is stress. Stress is the precursor to just about everything. The Center of Disease Control recently came out and said stress can be attributed to 95% of all illness. All illness. We're talking about depression, cancer, heart disease, suicidal thoughts, anxiety. Stress is the precursor. So first of all, we have to identify stress. Now for me, there's 3 levels of stress. There's physical stress. So what would be an example? Exercising wrong, maybe lifting wrong, or being in a car accident. How about sitting at a desk all day long, leaning over with pins and fabric and all the things you guys have to do? Is that a physical stressor? Yes or yes? Yes, okay, good. Interactive here, come on, interactive. Or else we'll all get up and do push-ups. Okay, exercise. So there's physical stress. Now that can start early in life. You could have had an accident early in life that affects the biomechanics of your body and the structure of your body. There's emotional stress, which is mostly what we think of. When we think of stress, we think of how it's affecting our mind. And then there's chemical stress. So what's a chemical stressor? Caffeine, sugar, alcohol, pizza, soda, artificial sweeteners, medication, color dyes, preservatives, additives, all the things that we're putting into our body. Now, when most people are stressed, how do they eat?
Poorly.
They either eat poorly, comfort foods, bonbons, right, and pizza, or they do the opposite and they don't eat at all, which is the worst thing you can do. In fact, Jamie touched on it. If you skip breakfast, you're 10 times more likely to have mood swings and mood disorders later in the day. So never, if you're gonna skip any meal, never skip breakfast, ever, ever, ever. So what I like to do is tell my clients to take the physical, chemical, and emotional stresses in their life and list them on a piece of paper. So actually write out all the things that are physically stressful, emotionally, and chemically stressful to your life and your health, and then turn the page over and put physical, chemical, and emotional again, and list a counteractive behavior to each one of those things. So for instance, if physical stress is the big thing to you, then maybe a counteraction to that could be, I'm going to exercise at lunch, I'm going to go for a 20-minute walk, or I'm going to wake up every morning and stretch for 5 minutes before I start school. If coffee is a big thing for you, then maybe you're going to start drinking green tea. Maybe you're going to drink more water. So you have to identify what it is, and then addressing anxiety, I think having a little bit of what Jamie calls anxiety, and I like to call that edge that you have to get out of bed. For me, it comes down to what your purpose is. So I think every human being needs a purpose statement for their life. Why you do the things that you want to do in your life. So sit down and just write on a piece of paper, my purpose in getting out of bed every morning is,